Alright, we are back, and now I just started Unreal Engine. Again, let me just get this command here. You can also just copy this. Ray tracing shadows enable two-sided geometry to 0, so just copy this. Boom. This is just because some things are nanite, and then you have those blobby shadow artifacts, and this is quite ugly. It's because nanite is not really programmed well, to be honest. And it's using like a different mesh. It's using the old mesh and the nanite, and nothing is really like the same geometry and the same face, and then this is why you get those shadow artifacts. So this is why we just disable the two-sided geometry. All right, and then also make sure that you get this streaming pool size, and set this to 6000. So you have enough VRAM you can use now. Otherwise you're gonna have blurry textures and they will not load properly. Okay, so now we have those textures ready. Before we import those textures, let's get back to the terrain material. Because in the previous episode, or like in the previous episode, we did set up this whole thing. So our parallax occlusion is now ready. All right, so apply, continue, and save. So now, before we load in our textures we just created, let's do the actual vertex blend, because we want to use this material and we want to blend this with another material. So what we basically need is, basically what you need to use is a so-called height lerp, because we not just want to blend, we want to use the height information. The height information, we can get this texture here, but this is a texture object, okay? This will be the height information of our mud material we just created. But now you can just get this height lerp, and we get a texture sample. This is where we put our height, like here. But the only difference is this is a texture sample, this is a texture object. So then you can just get this one here. So we lerp this. We don't lerp this. This is just our height information. So let's just do it like so. Okay. And we will use a vertex color constant. This is pretty simple because this is only deciding, okay, what channel you want to use in order to blend A with B. And we want to just paint on the red channel. This is it. And then you have a contrast here. So you can also just promote this to a parameter, and contrast is fine. We are not really using that. Just leave it like so. Okay, just leave it like so. It's perfectly fine. And then we only have A and B. So this means this first material, we have diffuse, we have normal, and also we're going to have a roughness. So we need 3 things, and also the height. So height, diffuse, normal, and roughness. So we actually need 4 different height lerp nodes. But before we do that, let's just, as I told you, also get the roughness channel. So just a texture sample. And let's do C, and we call this one roughness. And let's just leave it white. Okay. So now we do know that we have diffuse, normal, and the height. But where is it actually? Didn't I just create another texture sample? Yes, of course, sorry for that, here. And this would be the height. So we just leave this all empty now. We just prepare the logic. And let's do something like this. And let's get this another color, so we do know that this is height. All right. And roughness maybe, let's just leave it white. Okay, now let's put this over, let's put it in between. And let's move it here. And we also put this one here. So it's a little cleaner. And then you can also just, with the arrow, you can just put it here to get plenty of space. So this is where we will put it in between. Okay? But we only need this height information, which will be the mud. And this is the mud as well. Before we do that, before we fill our textures here, we will just duplicate this. Control C and Control V. Now we can see, so now you can see that is not connected here. So the pixel depth offset and the normal and all that stuff, and here diffuse, it's not really connected because we are going to lerp this anyway, right? So we do know that diffuse is going into base color, normal is going to normal, and this one is the pixel depth offset goes into the pixel depth offset. So we do have 3 values, 3 inputs, and also the roughness. So we can just delete this for now because we need to lerp this anyway. You can also click here, alt click. So let's start by combining this one, which is the A. This is the first diffuse color. All right. Then we will just copy this. Again goes here. This again goes into the height, and this one again goes into the contrast. It's always just the same connection. And we do this 4 times. Okay? So now the red goes into the transition phase, the red goes into the transition phase, the contrast goes into the contrast in each of those 4 nodes, and the height goes into the height, and height goes into the height. So we just hook this one up 4 times, all in the same perspective inputs. All right, so this one is the diffuse. Then let's get the normal. So this is the first material for the normal. This is the first material for our roughness. So let's put this into the roughness. And this is the pixel depth offset for our first material. Okay? Let's drag this one here. Yeah, let's put it here so we can see that what's going on. And we put it here so we can see what's going on. And we put it here so we can see what's going on. You can straighten this. Straighten connection. Boom. Also this Q. And then you can Q this. Okay, so now you can see it's a little, there's like a couple of things we need to connect, but this is perfectly fine for us now. So this is the second material, so we can get this diffuse, this is the lerp, we get this diffuse, and put this into the B. And then for the second material, we have the normal, this goes into the normal height lerp, and then we have the roughness of the second material, and this goes into the roughness of the second material. Into the height lerp, and we need to mix the pixel depth offset. So for this one we have the pixel depth offset here. This is the pixel depth offset into B, and then we put this one here. So we do know that this is the pixel depth offset. So C, pixel depth, offset, roughness, we blend the roughness information. So now it's prepared basically, and this is the normal, and this is the diffuse. So this is this, and this is that, boom. And pixel depth offset. All right. Let's make this a little darker. Okay, apply and save. And now we can hook this all up. So this is the lerp of our diffuse. So now both materials are connected. And we can reveal the second material, which is this one, once we use the vertex color red channel. This is the normal. We need roughness. And again, the pixel depth offset. Boom. And then just straighten this. So you can see a little better what's going on here. Let me straighten this. And press Q. Apply. So now, yeah, he's giving us like a board, and please, I have no idea what you want to do. This is perfectly fine for us. We can now finally get our textures. So let's import first the mud material, terrain material in mud, displacement, normal, albedo, AO, roughness. And boom. So we can also even use the ambient occlusion. So this is maybe something we need to do, we can do, okay? This means this is pretty easy, just get another one. Just get another one, so now you learn what we need to do. Of course, this is the red channel, so only red channel. The contrast is here, and we use always the same height texture, which would be the mud. And we put this into the ambient occlusion, and we call this ambient occlusion. Okay. And we can make this color maybe something completely black. Boom. So let's just get another texture sample, and we call this one, press C, AO, and we make this black. And then we will just do something like this. Then just copy this and put it down here. And then this is the first ambient occlusion, and this is the second ambient occlusion. And you can see I'm always trying to clean up things. All right. Now you can. Let's start with the first material. Let's start here. We have the height. We only have one height for our parallax occlusion, which is not true. I'm lying to you. We also have that second height. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So we get the displacement, and we put this. So click on this and drag this inside here. Then we go one step further, click on the diffuse texture sample, and we put in the albedo into the diffuse. Then we click on the normal, and we put in the normal. Open up the normal and flip green channel. Save, because this is OpenGL. Also, let me get a new folder. Call this one mud. And we also need to flip the green channel for the second texture. Click on the roughness and we put in the roughness. And finally, we have the AO and put in the AO. Perfect. This is our first material. But we have a second height texture. This is for our height blending. So get the displacement here and put it also here. Perfect. And now we get the second texture. So go to textures, create a new folder, and we call this one, let's call it grass. It's like grass, moss, I don't know what. But let's just get this. And we go to our terrain material, we get this grass material, we put this here. And then you can minimize, close this explorer here. And then let's go into the normal, flip the green channel. Now, this one is the height texture of our second material. So get the displacement. And fix this thing. Diffuse. Click on the diffuse and put in the albedo. Click on normal. Why does it look so weird? Click on the normal. Put in the normal. So now, click on the roughness. We get the roughness here. And the AO, and click grass AO, put this here. Boom. Now we can apply and save. Of course, we're going to tweak some parameters later, so maybe we need to tweak some, we're going to tweak some stuff later. But now the base logic needs to work, and this is how it's going to look now, as of now. Okay, so let's start to see what's going on. Now you can try that. You can click on this mesh, so make sure that this is not nanite enabled. So we did this already. There's no nanite enabled. Okay, and also search for cast shadows and disable this. This is important for parallax occlusion. Then we can actually go to mesh paint. Click on this, then paint, and we only want the red channel to be active. And then you can decrease the brush. So let's do 0.1, and maybe a strength of like 0.2, and then you can toggle, with X you can erase or paint. Press, like you can see here. Erase or paint. So let's do paint. Now you can see nothing is going to happen. The reason why nothing is going to happen, because we need to go to terrain, material. Let's create a material instance, because we want to change a couple of parameters later maybe. mi_terrain. So we want to change the ambient occlusion strength of each material. Maybe we want to give it a tint, a contrast, and maybe the tiling of something, so we can do all that. And also maybe the strength of the ambient occlusion. Parallax occlusion. Okay, so now we put this inside here. Okay, of course it's not going to work, because I just realized that we need to update our UV. I did a noise displacement, so this is one UV space. Of course it's going to look horrible. So what we need to do is we need to go into Blender. We open up our terrain. So this is not really the terrain we have. We need to import the one we exported previously. So Silent Hill Terrain Bumpy, import. Let me also at the same time, let me just check if we have enough resolution. But I think we have. Yeah, I think this is fine. And when we see, obviously, when we go to UV editing in edit mode, you can see this is one UV space. So we need to, let's do S30. And then let's UV pack islands. There. And without scale and rotate. And then he's packing it. And you can see this is one UV. This is one UV space. Just to see how this is going to look. One UV space. And I think we can even scale it more. So let's do everything and scale it by S1.3 and UV pack islands. Let's see again. This is one UV space. Let me just see if this is enough. We need a little more. So let's just scale this again. S1.3. Maybe S1.2, a little more. And then UV pack islands again. Yeah, I think this is much better. Yeah, okay, maybe this is now too small, maybe. Let me see, 7 top view. So we should have a size of approximately maybe like so. So let's do S, sorry for that, A, S, and scale it down. A little more, and then UV pack islands. And I think this is good. Maybe let's do a little smaller. Pack islands. Of course, we can change the tiling and set Unreal Engine, but I want to make sure that we have enough resolution. This is the only reason why I'm doing this here. So the more it gets repeated, but the more resolution we're going to have. This is the good thing, but at the same time we need to get rid of the repetition. But yeah, so then let's just, why is this rotation? So, okay, export this, FBX. Yeah, exports, Silent Hill, and we do terrain bumpy. Selected objects, export. And then we can save as Silent Hill terrain. And then let's just leave it open. Let's click on this. On the mesh, get the mesh and re-import with a new file. And this will be Silent Hill terrain bumpy. And open this. Okay, now we're good to go. Now this is better. Now you can see this is way too small. Yeah, because I forgot we have a repetition already by default 2 by 2. So sorry for that, I just forgot. So we should go back and S.5 enter. And then pack islands. And let's do export this again. And then let's do re-import with a new file. And we get this one again. So now the tiling is perfect. Okay. And now let's put it like so. Perfect. And then we can get the HDRI and we can just drag it down. All right, so you can see the resolution looks pretty neat, looks pretty good. Of course, don't mind the repetition now, we fixed this. But now we can see that the ambient occlusion, the parallax occlusion, is in effect. So we can go to the material instance. Let's go to the material first. And we can get this height ratio, convert this to a, it is already a parameter. Okay, so this is already a parameter. So we call this one height ratio mud. And we set the priority to 1. And then we get this one. This is the height ratio called grass. And this is the priority 2. This we leave by default. Shadow steps we leave by default. Penumbra we leave by default. Let's promote this to a parameter. And this is the shadow strength mud. And we use a value of 0.2. So the reason why I'm doing a parameter here is because we can change it in our material instance. Now just copy this thing, and we put this also here in between. And this is the shadow strength grass. This one is the sort priority of 2. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. And this is 4. Sort priority, this is number 4. And we put this inside here. So we're not changing anything, it's still the same value. Here we can use a power node for the roughness, power. Let's set this to 1 by default. And connect this here. And put this into the roughness. We don't need this. So now this is the roughness strength. Promote this to a parameter. And we call this roughness strength. And default should be 1. And you can change the pixel depth offset. So you can also get, instead of using a power node, we have the height ratio here. So we can change the strength of the parallax occlusion here. And ambient occlusion. So let's get a power. Connect this one here. Connect this one to ambient occlusion. By default, let's promote this one to a parameter. And this is AO strength. And for the diffuse, we can also get a desaturation. Or is it called desaturate? And promote this one to a parameter. And we call this one saturation. And when you do 1, for example, you can desaturate. So let's do 0 by default. All right. So now we have a couple of parameters we can use. And now when we put in the MI terrain, we can open up the MI terrain. And now we have the height ratio of each. Let's do grass, because only grass is applied. So if you do 0, you can see we have no, this is only the texture with normal map, okay? And if you have something like 0.05, we have a little bit of parallax occlusion. 0.1, 0.2, now you can see this is really harsh. So 0.1 is perfect. So if you just turn the directional light, like so, now you can see we have shadows here. Then you can see this is like the shadow depth, basically, of the mesh. So this is basically like the complete opposite, but this is default, so we do 0.5, 0.4, 0.4. AO strength, let's do 1. And now you can see the ambient occlusion strength. So this is no ambient occlusion. This is like a lot. So let's do 0.5. Let's do 0.8. Then we have the contrast. Let's do 0.5. This is only for the blending and roughness strength. So 0 would be non-reflective. 1, you have some reflection. And here this is pretty horrible. So you might want to have 0. And saturation, you can just desaturate everything you want. So let's do 0.3 to have a little bit of desaturation. And now, let's see if this tiling is correct. Let's save. Maybe we can also even make this a little bigger. So it depends. Let's see, just to check the tiling so far for this one single texture. Yeah, it's still too small, because you have to consider when you see, so when you see it's 4 by 4, right? So you have 4 by 4, but this should be at least, I think, like 2 meters. Yeah. So the tiling is way too much. So we go back into this and let's just scale this one down to something like this. Then UV and then pack islands. Don't rotate, don't scale. Shade smooth and export FBX as terrain bumpy and selected objects and export. And then we can just re-import this again. Right click, re-import with a new file, and this is the terrain bumpy, and boom. All right. Perfect. And now you can see like how strong this effect is of parallax occlusion, basically. So we can always go back to the terrain here, material instance, and we can get this height ratio to 0.05. So this would be without, and this is the parallax occlusion effect. Yeah, 0.5 is plenty. Okay, and now we can actually paint. So you can click on this mesh, make sure this is not nanite, and then you can, as I told you before also, cast shadows, disable, and then click on this mesh, and go to mesh paint, and paint. And we only want to paint on the red channel. I have the size to 0.1, strength to 0.2, fall of 1, and then I can just try. So if this doesn't work, just press X. So you flip the paint and erase. Now you can see we are slowly painting mud. Then X, and then you can just get rid of this stuff here. So only paint the mud here. Step by step. Get the strength to maybe something like 0.5, so it's a little faster. And yeah, now this is much faster. Okay, and then I can reduce the size to maybe like 0.05, and then I can just X, and just get rid of those repetitions here. get back to the material instance, and then change the contrast. To 0 maybe. So it's a little softer. And yeah. The height grass, let's do let's do 0.03. Yeah, let's do 0.003. And for the mud, you can go crazy. Yeah. Now let's save. Now let's try. So I already flipped the green channel, but let's go to the terrain, textures. Let's check the grass normal, and let's flip the green channel again, just to see the difference. Yeah. And the mud. We open up the normal and we flip the green channel again. Yeah, and the green channel is flipped. Then we can play with the lighting a little bit. Now you can see where the magic happens, basically. Let's see, press play. Oops, player start. Let's change the player start. Now you can see. And we are not using displacement. It's all just a flat plane, basically, with parallax occlusion. And then let's try with the material quality level to engine scalability to cinematic. And screen percentage, let's do 80. This is just the resolution. Let's go into the grass texture. Get the grass albedo, and you can also manually turn down the brightness to something like 0.8. The brightness curve 0.2. No, I think 1 is fine. And saturation 0.7. Alright, so this is it. We applied the basic material, and then I think we can start to use some foliage, some stones, so we will see what we can just add here, and then we will also take care of the electric poles, and then in the end we will do some planes, so like some flags hanging down, just add more detail, so basically. But the smaller things we will do in the end. So yeah, this is it for this episode.